A 5-year-old boy just woke up in his mother's body, and his mother just woke up in his. If you think that sounds funny, wait until you find out why it happened, and who's about to walk through the door expecting answers. My name doesn't matter yet. What matters is this. I was a single mother, running my own tech company under a fake name, raising a genius 5-year-old son who already had a PhD nobody knew about. We were fine. We were careful. We were hiding from a 5-year-old scandal that wasn't even our fault. Then my son begged a mad scientist to let him test an experimental soul-swapping machine. And somehow I woke up in a 5-year-old's body, and my son woke up in mine. Stay with me, because this gets messier before it gets better. It started with a promise. Years ago I was engaged to a man named Jingyu, heir to one of the biggest corporations in the country. The night before our wedding, everything fell apart. He believed I'd betrayed him. I believed he'd humiliated me. The engagement was broken in front of everyone, and I disappeared pregnant, with nothing but my price. 5 years later, I came back with a son who could outthink grown engineers, company worth more than the family that once looked down on me, and zero interest in ever seeing Jingyu again, except my son had other plans. He was obsessed with a scientist everyone called the doctor who hates crowds. This man had built something insane. A working soul transfer device. My son wanted to see it. I should have said no. I said fine, but no dangerous experiments. That night, alone in that lab, my son touched the wrong switch. I woke up with a headache that felt like my skull had been cracked open. My voice came out high and small. I looked down and saw tiny hands. Panic hit me like a truck. I wasn't in my body anymore. I was in my son's. And somewhere across that lab my son opened his eyes in mine. The scientist told us the machine was broken. Fixing it would take a month. A month. I had a company to run, meetings to attend, a life that couldn't just pause. And instead I was trapped in a 5-year-old's body, while my own son wore my face and my voice, and apparently my company credit card. We made a pact on the spot: tell no one. If people found out, it would be chaos. My son, now walking around in my adult body, swore he'd behave. I did not trust that promise for 1 second, and I was right not to. The very next day, I showed up at the biggest company in the region and got hired as an assistant with a laughably huge salary. Turns out the CEO offering that salary was Jingyu. My own son, wearing my body, had wandered straight into the man I'd spent 5 years avoiding. Meanwhile, I was stuck being a kindergartner. Bath time. Bedtime stories. A woman I didn't recognize, who turned out to be my own mother figure now, since my son was legally me, tucking me in and calling me her baby. It should have been humiliating. Instead, something strange happened. I started seeing my own parenting from the outside, and it hit differently than I expected. Here's the twist nobody saw coming. The CEO who hired me was the same man whose ring I'd once worn. And he had no idea that the secretary he was falling for, sharp, funny, oddly protective of a strange little boy, was actually his ex-fiancée's 5-year-old son wearing her body. Confused yet? It only gets tangled from here. While my son ran my adult life with terrifying confidence, I was defending myself against a bully at the playground, a bully who turned out to be tied to Jingyu's other ex. The real reason our wedding blew up 5 years ago. That woman had lied to Jingyu, claimed she was the one he'd been with the night everything went wrong, and let an innocent woman take the blame. Except the real story was buried so deep, even Jingyu didn't fully know it yet. At office, my son, in my body, was accused of slacking off by a jealous coworker, who happened to be the daughter of a family desperate to marry back into Jingyu's fortune. She dumped water on me, lied to Jingyu's face, and got instantly exposed and fired when the office cameras told the real story. My son even flinch. If anything, he seemed to be enjoying being an adult a little too much. Then Jingyu decided he wanted his new secretary at an important dinner. My son agreed, but insisted on bringing me along, the kindergartner nobody was supposed to suspect. I sat through an entire high society banquet in a 5-year-old's body, watching my ex-fiancé dote on me while I silently panicked that one wrong word would blow everything apart. It got worse. Jingyu's actual ex, the woman who'd lied about that night 5 years ago, showed up at the same dinner and accused me of stealing her fiancé. The room turned into a circus. Accusations flew. My son, still wearing my body, defended me with a ferocity that honestly surprised me. For a 5-year-old trapped in an adult's skin, he fought harder for my reputation than most grown men ever had. Then Jingyu's family arrived. His father, his sister, and a whole new wave of humiliation, because apparently his family already blamed me for a runaway wedding that never actually happened the way they thought. I watched my own son get slapped down verbally by people who didn't know the real story, and something in me finally snapped. I stood up, well, my son stood up in my body, and refused to be silent anymore. Here's where it gets personal. That night, walking home, Jingyu cornered me and asked the question that had haunted him for 5 years. Was it really her that night? My son, terrified of blowing our secret, somehow managed to dodge the question while still making Jingyu doubt everything he thought he knew. Back home in my son's tiny body, I tucked myself into bed while my actual son, in my body, showered in my own house like it was nothing. I yelled at him through the door. He ignored me. Being 5 years old and completely powerless against your own child is a special kind of nightmare. The next morning, my son marched back into the office in my body and discovered something devastating. Jingyu's ex was manipulating the family, poisoning his father's opinion, and slowly boxing me out of any future with the Fu family, all while pretending to be sweet and wronged. My son watched it happen from the inside, learning who our real enemies were before I even had a chance to defend myself. Then came the moment that changed everything. A man showed up out of nowhere, claiming to be my husband, holding photos as proof, dragging me, well, my 5-year-old body, being controlled by me, being watched over, into a public confrontation. It turned out this man had been paid by Jingyu's ex to fake a relationship with me, to make sure Jingyu would never trust me again. My son, in my adult body, beat the man to a pulp defending my honor before the truth even came out. That's when Jingyu's family, watching from a distance, quietly started to reconsider who the real villain in this story was. The pressure mounted. Jingyu's ex, desperate to lock him down before the truth surfaced, spiked his drink and staged a night together, then announced to the entire family that they'd slept together, using it as leverage. Jingyu, disoriented and manipulated, nearly gave in out of guilt. My son, trapped in my body, watching the man I once loved get cornered by a liar, had to decide in that instant whether to reveal everything or let the lie stand. He chose truth. He marched into that room and told Jingyu flatly, "This woman is lying and I can prove it." It turned out Jingyu's father had ordered a paternity test without anyone's permission, hoping to catch me in a scandal. The results came back and shattered every assumption in the house. My son was, biologically, Jingyu's son. The night 5 years ago that broke our engagement wasn't a mistake or a betrayal. It was manipulation. Jingyu had been drugged that night, and the woman who orchestrated it had been lying for 5 years, letting an innocent woman and her child suffer the consequences. The truth cracked the family wide open. Jingyu's father, furious and disoriented, first tried to deny it, then finally accepted what the evidence showed. Jingyu, staring at the proof, realized the fiancé he'd spent 5 years resenting had actually been raising his son alone, in silence, without a single complaint. He wanted to fix it immediately. He wanted marriage, reconciliation, a family stitched back together in an afternoon. It wasn't simple. 'Cause I, the real me, the adult still trapped in my son's small body, hadn't agreed to any of it. My son had. That's the part nobody expected. My 5-year-old, wearing my face, had gone ahead and gotten a marriage certificate with Jingyu without me. I found out secondhand, from my own child, while I was trapped in his tiny body, unable to do a single thing about it. I was furious. And terrified. And underneath all of it, a small humiliating flicker of hope because deep down, some part of me had never fully let go of him either. The soul swap machine finally recharged. My son and I stood in that lab, ready to switch back, and just as the machine powered up, Jingyu burst in, soaking wet from the rain, refusing to let his fiancée leave without him. In the chaos of the storm and the machine and the shouting, the switch happened, and I woke up back in my own body, standing in front of the man I had spent 5 years running from. He looked at me like he was seeing me clearly for the first time. Because in a way, there was no time to process it gently. His father was already convinced I'd trapped his son into marriage. His mother initially wanted nothing to do with me. His ex was still circling, still lying, still trying to find one more angle to break us apart. And underneath all of it, my son, finally back in his own small body, was the only one openly, fearlessly on my side, standing up to grown adults twice his height, and telling them exactly what he thought of how they were treating his mother. Little by little, the truth reshaped everything. Jingyu's mother, initially cold and dismissive, watched how her grandson defended me, watched how I handled humiliation with more grace than the people dishing it out, and slowly, grudgingly, began to respect me. It didn't happen with a speech. It happened in small moments. A fired employee reinstated because I stood up for her, a business meeting I saved without anyone's help, a bracelet I helped my former enemies now ally protect from a manipulative father. Because here's the twist inside the twist. The woman who had lied about that night 5 years ago had a daughter of her own, someone I'd initially seen only as a rival. But as the layers peeled back, it turned out she was a victim too, controlled by a father willing to sell his own daughter for money, willing to use a dead mother's belongings as leverage. When I helped her stand up to him, something shifted between us. Enemies don't always stay enemies. Sometimes they just needed someone to show them a different way to fight back. Jingyu's father remained the hardest to win over. He tried bribery. He tried threats. He tried publicly humiliating me in front of business partners to prove I wasn't fit for his family. Every single time, my son intervened, sometimes with brutal honesty, sometimes with a child's blunt logic that cut through adult nonsense faster than any argument could. Eventually, even Jingyu's father couldn't deny what was obvious to everyone else. I hadn't schemed my way into this family. I'd survived it alone for 5 years and asked for nothing. Then came the day Jingyu finally confronted his ex directly, laid every card on the table and severed ties completely. She didn't go quietly. She showed up one final time, desperate, dangerous, and this time she wasn't alone. Her own father had spiraled into debt and turned vengeful, kidnapping me and my son in a plot to extort money and settle old scores. That was the darkest hour of the whole story. Tied up, threatened, watching a grown man threaten a 5-year-old to control me, I'd the only thing I could. I stayed calm, I stalled, and I trusted that the family who'd spent months learning to trust me would come through when it mattered most. They did. Jingyu broke down that door with the kind of desperation that only comes from real love. And the ordeal ended with the people who'd hurt us finally facing consequences instead of hiding behind money and threats. After that night, nothing about my relationship with Jingyu's family felt uncertain anymore. His mother started calling me daughter instead of that woman. His father, humbled, stopped trying to control the narrative. My son had a real family now, not a performance of one. Then came the pregnancy. Not one baby, 5. The entire household turned upside down with excitement and terror in equal measure. Jingyu, determined to understand what I was going through, actually asked the scientists to swap bodies with me for the final stretch of the pregnancy, insisting he wanted to carry some of that burden himself. It was clumsy and uncomfortable, and occasionally is watching a grown man in my body cry over hormones he didn't understand. But underneath the comedy was something that mattered. He wanted to understand what I'd carried alone for 5 years, even if only for a few weeks. The babies were born safely, 4 boys, 1 girl, In a hospital room crowded with a family that had wanted to throw me out and now couldn't stop crying tears of joy. But the story wasn't quite finished. In one last desperate move, the woman who'd started this whole mess broke into the house, planning to use the very same soul swap technology to steal my identity entirely, to become me and take everything I'd built. She underestimated one thing. The family she was trying to infiltrate wasn't fooled anymore. They saw through her instantly, and her own scanner before it ever got off the ground. In the end, what started as a broken engagement, a lie that lasted 5 years, and a reckless, bought-up experiment became something none of us expected. Built not on perfect timing or easy trust, but on 5 years of quiet strength, one very smart 5-year-old who gave up on his parents, and a truth that finally outlived I built to bury it. If there's one thing this chaotic ride proves, it's this. Sometimes doesn't need grand speeches or perfect timing. Sometimes it just needs one stubborn kid, one broken machine, and one mother who never stopped fighting quietly in the background, until the whole world had no choice but to finally see her clearly. And that's the story. A single mother, a genius son, a soul swap gone wrong, and a 5-year lie that finally ran out of road. If you made it this far, you already know why this one hit different.